I've also found that there's three levels to this in regards to when we're on a call, kind of discovering like what is it that we're solving for. I think there's three really important ways to get to the bottom of it, and it's really just taking the problem from face value and getting down to the depth of, if we do this really well and asking the right questions, we should be able to extract some time or money value, or at least some emotional capacity of like what is frustrating or what's the problem here. Because most people, most technical founders or non-technical founders haven't articulated this to where it's like, you tell me the problem and I'm going to ask like, okay, what happens when X, Y, and Z thing occurs, right? I want to repeat it back to you, ask for you to clarify more, because I want to understand the chaos that ensues from that problem. Then the second level is, okay, well then when that chaos ensues, how does that affect you as the business owner, right? So I understand the chaos that ensues, I understand how it affects them. And then I'll ask, well, when that problem occurs, what happens to the business? So then I understand the business outcome, and just asking three questions from the same problem and reiterating what they're saying back to them, with just further clarifying questions. That on its own, I feel like really is allowing us to peel back. Okay, what are we actually solving for here? Where it's not about these features and things that we want, but like what's really like under the hood, the problem, what's on fire right now.
Yeah.
Is there anything else there that you would say like is really good to ask, either as a consultant or maybe flip side to the business owner, that's like, here's some really good things to keep in mind to kind of open up, what are we actually solving for here?
Right. Yeah. I mean, those are variations of great questions. The variations of questions I use, I talk about the why conversation, why this, why now, why me. And that's more of a sales thing, but it has the same outcome, which is that, the buyer a lot of times has self-prescribed a solution, and they're not the expert, so it's almost definitely the wrong solution. They might have set a budget for this solution. We think it should be, here's what we need to do, and we think it's probably going to be about $30,000. But I will always validate that sometimes it's the right solution, but almost never. Maybe 10% of the time it's the right thing to do. And there's almost always some way to solve it that's cheaper for them and more profitable for me. So, like, why do it the hard way? And it reminds me of a story about, I don't know if this is apocryphal or not, but someone, hourly developer, and they were asked to do a change. I think it was a FileMaker system. They're asked to do this change to the system that was really hard to do. And therefore, the developer was really excited to do it. Because I've been doing FileMaker for so long, and it's kind of boring. I know everything, but this particular problem is really interesting, and I'm going to get to use some PHP and all this stuff that I never use, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to solve this problem, and just iterating and iterating and iterating. They were spending tons of money on it, and it turned out that the feature that they were building was for one employee who didn't want to tab around the interface the same way, and it's just it would have been less money to replace that employee than they spent on the interface. So the main question is what's the business case, or why did you decide on this solution? Why not just do this? Why not just do that? Why not leave it the way it is? Really, what's the problem? And it's and just like you said, if you walk it down, eventually, guess what you're going to get to? Dollars. So it's okay, so we've determined that this is $1,000 problem. So we're not going to bring in a $10,000 solution. We're going to be creative. What are the different things we could do to solve this $1,000 problem? Maybe it's training. Maybe it's simply training someone how to use the interface. Maybe they didn't realize keyboard shortcuts were a thing. Maybe there's some interface automation you could do on their computer. It's just one user in this case, right? So somebody who, and getting back to your question about how would you detect that this person is going to be a good person to work with, especially at this early phase, where they're creative. They get creative about different ways to solve the problem that are perhaps not their, I don't want to say comfort zone, but maybe their main thing is they're a React developer or an API developer, but they've got they're this sort of evil genius, well, we could just do this and that would solve your problem without spending too much money. That's a quality that I would like. That's what I would look for if I was looking for some kind of someone. It's a very early stage. We're not talking about a startup that's like looking to scale and they're getting a million concurrent requests. It's
Right.
a completely different animal. But if you're just starting out and you're trying to like get the ball rolling, a lot of little tests and someone who's willing to not be dogmatic and just be super flexible and creative and goal oriented, not like input oriented. Like, well, I worked the hours, you owe me the money.
I this kind of brings to mind the old adage that when all you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, and I notice myself doing this from time to time. I have to almost resituate myself and remind myself that a code is a liability, not an asset. We're not trying to write as much code as we can. And then also B, there are solutions that we can find, right? That don't
Right.
involve us, running a standalone Rails server just to, XYZ, whatever it is,
Whatever.
display
Yeah.
a PowerPoint,